So, good morning, everybody. My name is Grace Bogdan. I will be facilitating today's DAP. We are being recorded. I did want to start the meeting really quickly to just say that this will be Damon's last meeting with us on the Design Advisory Panel. I checked the history this morning. It's almost 6 years today from when he had his first meeting with us. And so we really appreciate your time with us, Damon. I'm not sure if everybody else knows, but he was an MNC PPC employee like over a decade ago. He's also worked in a local law firm, and we really appreciate your presence on the DAP, your perspective, and I just love your optimistic attitude. So I feel very lucky because we know that we're still going to be seeing Damon on the other side of the table, but I just wanted to say a quick thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My daughter is 6 years old, so it's like this panel coincided perfectly with her coming on board. it's been a lot, but looking forward to kind of putting my focus into a project that needs it right now.
Did she not replace you, Damon?
Just take your spot.
And then for other announcements, we do have Brian Kelly's tenure will be up. I believe November will be his last meeting with us. And so we will be doing another short goodbye. And so for anybody that's interested, we will be shortly sending out nominations for a member of academia. If you know somebody that's interested, please have them contact me. And so with that, we will get to our first item. This is 4861 Battery Lane. This is the second presentation at the sketch plan level. In the memo that went out last week, we gave a summary, and actually the applicant's resubmission gave a very detailed summary about how they've made certain changes in response to the first panel review. And then after that memo went out, actually the applicants did provide us a supplemental submission. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the team so they can explain the iterations there.
Great, thank you. My name is Vik Tugberg. I'm with the Architects Collaborative. With me today, I have Jayu Liu, and I have Chang, who was here with me, Chang Cho. He is online somewhere in Europe. I don't know where he is, having a better time than we do. We have so many drawings. Things have been produced along the way. Because we are working on a model, it just generates incredible amount of information. It is good, and sometimes it's not so good because it requires information kind of out of turn. So we're trying to balance that. And at the same time, we're trying to respond to the questions and suggestions, recommendations. So we have been working on this nonstop. As Grace mentioned, that we submitted some last minute things on Wednesday, but I wasn't, with few things, I wasn't perfectly satisfied, and we continue to do work. So we have a few more additional drawings for you today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this presentation as quickly as I can. I will go back to any drawing, any slide you would like to see again. I just want you to know what's available to us to view. This is really it. We have the original DAP submittal presentation, supplemental things. To address the comments, I just want to start with, while we're working with kind of abstractions of buildings and materials, this is some of our previous work, some of the materials we've used, a lot of glass brick, there's some EFIS, some synthetic panel work, just goes on and on. So what we're proposing will have these kinds of materials. They are solid, long-term, long-lasting quality materials, and they are appropriate for this scale of work. Next one, please. Okay, so we had comments that relate to the site plan, meaning the building footprint and its relation to various adjacencies. Within that, there were some landscape comments. Our landscape architect has also done a lot of work. He may not get a chance to go into detail today unless you have a question, and then he will help me sort of cover that area. Okay, go back to the other one. So actually, he did a numbering system, 1, 2, 3, whatever, and then there are certain landscape elements attached to that. So the nature of the comments here that I would like to talk about that relate to the architecture and the planning of it is previously the driveway or the drop-off area was larger. So we reduced the size of that. Hopefully, we've done that. It still allows a reasonable circulation and few spots to like park in front of the building while you run in and get a guest pass and then go proceed to the garage, or if you're having a quick delivery. And it's integrated into the landscape and the graphics and the potential treatment that we're going to keep advancing to the next phase better than what it was previously. We have narrowed down the sort of the throughway a little bit, and we've also eliminated the 3 parking spaces, which had become an issue. The access driveway was reduced by 2 feet. We're down to 22 feet, which is still a reasonable dimension to have a 2-way traffic, just going in and out of the garage and service, as well as the fire truck access. Then there are various other comments on the side, like the front battery lane treatment. We added another row of trees because it is deemed to be a canopy corridor. Again, Josh can address more of that if need be. The sort of the hike bike trail going north-south, that has been embellished. Additional landscape work has been done. And we've also done additional massing and elevation work on that. Those are the items that I'm saving towards the end, which may sort of produce more discussion. And at the rear of the property, the hike and bike trail, we have addressed both the architectural elevation, the way the building is angled, and we provided more space, which was one of the comments from the property line to the building edge. And as we go through, I will point these items out. I think that covers pretty much the comments on the site plans, sort of the 2-dimensional plane. Next one, please. These are some of the landscape drawings. Again, what Josh and we have in mind for the plaza treatments and potential finishes and visuals. Next one, please. There's really not much to report here. There are minor internal modifications to comply with the massing and elevation changes we did. Typical floor plan. There's nothing really major to discuss. The roof plan has changed quite a bit because we've made major revisions in the massing of the west elevation facing the building to our west, which was also one of the comments, and embellish the building's edge along another sort of the pedestrian path connecting, going north-south. We've also relocated the pool from the battery lane side to the NIH side, and which allowed us a little more latitude in terms of having more open space, recreation space on the rooftop of the building. Those are the major changes. Next one, please. This is really in their garage, but I just wanted you to see the dimensional change in the space that is allocated, that we allocated between us and the NIH property. And we basically added 10 feet on the east side, another 3 feet on the west side, and we angled the building along the sort of parallel to the path and the property line. It's important to keep in mind here that the NIH property is wide open. We can look at a Google image if need be, but to our north, there's kind of an urban jungle, which is meaning it has a lot of low growth and older trees may or may not be in fantastic shape. Obviously, we're going to be clearing the portion as much as we can that is within our property, but the rest of it will have to be done by NIH. And we do have some renderings for you in that area. Next one, please. I just wanted to, we have a comparative presentation. The left side is what was submitted or presented at the first app meeting. The right side indicates the changes. For me, really the most important part of this building at this point for the discussion, every part is important otherwise, is the front elevation, the massing, and how we're treating the streetscape. And I have more information relating to that. We did change the setbacks. We had some sort of re-entrant elements, and we eliminated a good bit of it. There's not as much in and out above the sixth floor. You know, the guidelines recommend that the base elements and the step backs happen within the first 60 feet. The adjacent buildings, as you know, have a baseline at 30 feet. And that was one of the comments to us, is to sort of emphasize that relationship more. And I believe we did a lot of work. Hopefully you will like it and agree with us. My intent has been to create a really a nice building, something that has an edge, bring something new, and just as importantly, it is buildable, and still comply with these guidelines and really be a good neighbor and a good addition to the public space. So at the 30-foot line, which is the 3-story line, that's the adjacent baselines of the buildings where their major setback happens. The one to our west has an 8-foot step back. The one to our east is more like a 2-foot step back and a cornice. You'll see it in following drawings. So we increased the step back. The first step back is 6 feet, and then we have an upper step back to develop our tripartite scheme, you know, base, body, and top, in a more prominent way. So we stepped that back an additional 4 feet. Now we have a 10-foot step back total on the top floor. Moving on, next one, please, Jayu. I'm not going to dwell on this too much because it's one of the requirements, but you've seen it, you have it in the package that you received. It is an important drawing, but I'm not going to dwell too much. It shows the development of the ideas and thoughts. The most important drawing here for me is the bottom right corner final model, which really shows how we've advanced the building concept. We have this columnar element that terminates in a major trellis like element on the rooftop. In the initial design, which had a little bit more prominence on the front elevation, I moved it towards the side elevation, which gave me an opportunity to expand on that concept. The building to our west has a very symmetrical expressions. It has 2 ends and a kind of a retracted middle. And at a sort of a, I guess, at a different level of understanding, we wanted to be sympathetic to that. So we have an inner element that is also symmetrical, which is represented by these prominent columnar pieces that culminate in the trellis at the rooftop. Then we've layered a number of different elements on it and scaling pieces to really develop a major elevation here. Hopefully this north-south path will be used intensely as we anticipate, and that we all get the benefit of that. We are putting some energy there. Next one, please. And you can see again the adjacencies and the relationships here from a bird's eye view. But the previous submittal on the left, the current building design that we would like to proceed with on the right. Next one, please. You see different views of that. Next one. What?
Oh,
Can you go back just for a second?
sorry.
what's important here is that we will get back again, is that you can see the scattered sort of the zigzagging elevation or the sawtooth massing we presented to the NIH side. One of the elements which may not be obvious here because it's a secondary gesture is we realize looking at sort of the overview that if you're familiar with the Woodmont Avenue as it curves and goes to Rockville Pike, there is a kind of a prominent view looking through this back corridor. So we added an element to acknowledge that on the east side of our building, it's a vertical element, again, that sort of reaches to a rooftop, a secondary trellis. Oh, it so happens that the building to our east also steps back here. So we have a nice corridor and a secondary focal point as one is driving in that direction. Next.
The view.
I'm sorry, we had so many things, but we can go back and look at a Google map here,
No, I can appreciate
a
it.
live map. You will see it that there's so many drawings. I didn't want to take up so much space. Next one, please. But we didn't do it just to do it. It is there. So anyway, you can start seeing more what the building is going to look like and the feeling that we're trying to create. And the importance of this drawing for me is we tried to capture the growth on the NIH side, albeit it looks a lot cleaner here than in reality. Hopefully it will be cleared out. But we do have quite a bit of space between us and NIH and the line of trees. And I believe aside from being the northern side of the building, it will still be a pleasant path. Next one, please. Another view of the path and the space between the building and the building to our west. Next one, please. I think you can appreciate perhaps a little better, although it's a bird's eye view, rendering what I was trying to describe in terms of our Western elevation treatment and our intention. And combining this element, this treatment, with the rooftop, flipping the swimming pool to the northern side, because we're on the rooftop, it's really irrelevant north-south. It allowed us to join the trellis with actually the recreation space. I'm excited about it. It gives us an opportunity to provide good lighting, and create a fantastic recreation space on the rooftop. Adds to the sort of attraction to the building. Next one, please. So the previous submittal, current submittal, what you received in the last package, not the supplemental package. I'm trying to keep it clear. There are three things going on here. You're only looking at the first two. One of the issues here on the front elevation, aside from the scaling element, the 30-foot baseline, 60-foot, 30-foot expression, is the southwest corner of the building where you see the trellis. Our building on the second presentation was recessed following that vertical element and what appeared to be a wall. This is a mispresentation as well as a bit of a misunderstanding on my part. And we don't intend to do this, and I will show you what we intend to do. We've basically completely changed that corner. There is some grading that's happening, which is actually higher, but the site is rendered as flat. So the white wall you're seeing is really not being obstructed by the actual grading, but we've clarified this in further drawings. And we do agree with the staff's comment and the board's comment. We don't want to present any kind of a, patio space or whatever. It's a misunderstanding. Next one, it's my mistake. Next one, please. So you can see the changes from the previous to the new one. We've articulated a lot more on this elevation. Was also suggested that we resolve this elevation. There was too much repetition. We agreed, but that was the length, extent of the development at the time. Hope you agree. We brought more richness to the side. These colors are more abstract. We're dealing with lighter color. We're still working with modeling. Obviously, when the reality of the materials are brought in, sort of the next level of study, it will be a even more compelling rendering and building in reality, hopefully. Next one, please. I wanted to talk about this elevation that I mentioned a number of times. What's important is on the ground plane, we have widened the path by about 10 feet on the eastern side, another 3 feet on the western corner, widen the path, and also cut the building back parallel to the property line. We've introduced more residential elements and a little bit more dynamic geometry rather than surface architecture. And then we've created a 30-foot base here again, which was suggested by the staff, and we agreed with that. And so that the building base is more continuous and more prominent on the side as well. Next one, please. And this is a comparison now with the second submittal, which you just saw in the previous drawing, versus where I am today. And what we did, I'm going to stand up so I can point to certain things here. We had a very prominent cantilever, and that we felt was the essence of this building concept, and sort of the boldness, and for us at least, a new architectural treatment. And I certainly don't want to lose that. But there were some things I think that was interfering, which was there's still an overweight, too prominent a canopy, which I think drew way too much attention to that portion of the building and stopped the eye. So listening to the recommendations, by the way, this is just a reference line so you can see the height relationship with the adjacent buildings. Approximately 30 feet, 3 stories, roughly. I'm assuming they have a 2-story space. We have a completely 2-story space, which is our lobby entrance, some seating areas within that lobby. So in order to bring more prominence to this line, we widened the span away from this thinner band, and then we added an additional line almost in a sort of classical treatment to bring a little bit more interest and importance. We reduced the scan, well, we eliminated that heavy canopy at this level. I pulled the third floor out, reduced the extent of the canopy so that we're not casting a very large shade line, shadow line, and made this band the same size as so that this portion of this building seems more integral. The canopy became a secondary, in my view, secondary or a tertiary element, but we've still kept our, what I think is an important concept for the building. So that is, I think, in my view, it's a major effort to marry these two concepts together. And I'm desperately trying to hang on to this architectural expression because I'm excited about it. Hopefully you all see that we are making the effort and hopefully we are succeeding. The other buildings are very traditional looking buildings. We're not that, but proportion is one thing. Building skin treatment style, as you all know and appreciate, are different things. So next one, please. This is a view of the same things I described looking east. Again, the black line is for reference only. Next one, please. Just more context you can see. Next one, please. Next, please. Okay. This is one of the sketches, renderings we presented. This is the space on the west, the path on the western side of the building. And we're on the left. Obviously, that's where the colored trees are because we control that, and Josh can address that path. He's done a lot of work here, embellished the landscaping. And I think it's a pretty realistic, spatially space. Obviously, the trees and colors, etc., are some other abstractions. Next one, please. This is the rendering of the path going east-west or west-east along NIH property line. Next one, please. And that's the end. So thank you for listening to me and being very patient with this. I'd love to hear your comments.
Just have one question to ask so that is where in the supplemental that you all shared, there was a south connection that looked different from this view.
Yeah, it's the opposite direction.
It's looking in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna show this.
Please.
I
Yeah.
think it
Yeah.
shows the north-south connection in a better light and many.
Well, also I'm curious, the supplement that you submitted later, can we talk about that now as well?
Please.
Have you haven't shown it yet, have you?
No, because I was showing you the most advanced one. Frankly, I didn't want to take up too much time. But we have the original DAP presentation, we have the supplemental presentation, and then we have this comparative presentation. So what would you like to see?
Supplement.
Okay.
So is this the package that you want to see?
Yeah, you can go through it quickly. That's the supplemental. Jayu is moving through it very quickly, but what should we run back and forth or?
Street view, the battery lane view.
This one?
Is there other views?
Yes.
There's glare on the
Uh,
screen right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was just me.
We did this very quick. We had last minute comments and we tried so hard to respond to these comments. This was a quick attempt on my part to show you.
With all different documents, which of these are we being asked to assess? Because I see some that say revise, some say potential alternative.
Okay,
I'm
good question.
confused as to which one of these
Good
things
question.
is on the table.
The last one I presented, the one I presented and finished just now.
So
not
the
this
one we're looking at right now is it.
No. This was a supplemental package. We did very quickly. Okay.
I'm finding it.
This, right.
So we should ignore the supplemental package?
Yeah, this aspect of it. There are a lot of other drawings in there.
So what was the submitted with, what were the intent of these images?
We responded very quickly. I really wanted to show what happens if I eliminate the front cantilever and try to do a 3-story base. It basically deleted the concept, the architectural concept of the building. If you can quickly click back to.
So this was just an exercise to show
Yeah,
what would happen, but
exactly.
not necessarily
Right,
what you're.
exactly. I mean, I didn't have a chance to
Okay,
do this work. That's what I'm saying.
okay.
Could you make it clear which is your preferred alternative that you
This
would
is-
like our comment on?
This is the one you're looking at.
This is,
You can try another view, this view. We have a number of them.
This is the material in the presentation.
It is.
Yeah, I guess my reaction to this one was the base seems much too high. And your supplemental one began an attempt to bring it down, which felt like a better move to me, but still needed refinement. And that was my reaction.
I hear you. I appreciate that. It just needs a lot of work. And then I mean, I thought about it quite a bit between then and now.
Right.
And I'm being very, I'm trying to hang on to this architectural concept, as I mentioned to you, of this building projection that is different proportions, yet it's still within the 60 feet baseline, etc.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I guess you have two neighbors that have established this 30-foot high kind of base, and
but they are not yet built.
I assume they're going to be built, aren't they?
I have no idea.
Well, they've been entitled, so.
So
Yeah.
the building to the west does have site plan approval. The building to the east does not. So that one is still true.
Is
I
the
think-
building east, just out
Well,
of curiosity?
That's sketch plan.
Okay.
It's part of Battery District.
One of the merits here, I think, is the top of the building. I think that you've devised a way for the building massing to meet the sky gracefully. More important to me from an urbanistic standpoint, particularly a street like Battery Lane, is how the building meets the ground. And I agree. I sort of feel like somebody's hiked the trousers up so that the belt line is someplace around just below the chest and a little bit higher than it really needs to be. The 30-foot height of the adjacent building seems to me to be a datum that you'd want to somehow respect, and it seems to be kind of confused by that. The gridding, the 3-story gridding that happens over the podium for the building. The thing that gives me pause is the raising up of the building on Piloti on the southeastern corner. I understand that part of it is a porte cochere that's accessible from the courtyard, but I don't understand what the Piloti and that space underneath there gives back to the realm of the street. In fact, it's in my mind, a good urban building creates a street wall that is legible. And to me, that begins to erode the idea of the street wall. So, my preference would be to see that not like that. The other thing is that the renderings of the previous versions of this, at least the glazing at the base of the building, seems to offer more transparency to it. And at the moment, the thing that we're looking at the moment seems like it's almost opaque at the bottom of the building. So it's a little confusing. Perhaps that's just an issue of the render.
It's just a rendering, really. I mean, again, we're modeling. This is like modeling clay. We're not rendering these things. I'm trying to respond to massing issues, not elevate the building or render the building. I mean, these things can be rendered, windows differently, etc. The issue here for me was the massing. I appreciate your comments, and I understand the urban edge. And, my point is that not every building has to do the same thing. If you look at Wisconsin Avenue, in the Woodmont quadrant in that area, there are so many buildings that create through block connections, major elements. To me, this building is, yes, it's in a setting of a series of buildings, but it also is a freestanding building. It doesn't have a building immediately attached to it as downtown. And what does it offer to the pedestrian? I think it offers a view into a green plaza, an interesting view. It's an inviting view, albeit is a semi-private space, but it's also attractive to a potential resident. And it gives it a direction to me, if you're coming to this building as an arrival point. My point with the supplemental was, okay, if it is really that critical that we have a 3-story base, that's what will happen, okay? And I did that quickly in response to the staff's comment. So I'd love to hear more thoughts so that we can get direction going on to the next phase of this.
Well, at risk of repeating myself, I think the supplemental view seems to be going in the right direction in terms of where the base needs to be. But it just needs a lot of refinement associated. I think one of the things that you have to resolve if this band you have between, let's say, the third and the sixth floor that's on the west side, how do you terminate that? And maybe you bring it around the corner, but don't continue it all the way down to the east side.
That's what we did.
Things like that.
Yeah, that's what we did. If you look closely at the render.
Different with Brian. I really respect what Brian has to say, but I actually like the view into the courtyard from Battery Lane and looking into that. So I'm not as troubled by that.
It's a bit of a relief in a.
So I actually really like that. I think that allows a sense of depth and penetration into the building and relieves, it creates a little bit of mystery and like there's something else back there. I think other comments I have, I think you made some really great improvements in terms of what you've done with the roof of the building. I agree with Brian there. I also think on the north side and relieving that pressure against NIH, I think is a significant improvement.
I didn't hear this mentioned yet, but just to make sure, because I saw something different in the minutes, but just to reiterate kind of the posture of this, that this is coming in at the sketch plan phase right now. And I just want to, we have the site plan coming in the future. The minutes talk about this being in the site plan phase. So I just wanted to make sure that there was not, confusion about kind of where this is in the process.
That's a mistake. Thank you for pointing that out.
But I don't know if there are other comments.
West facade and side, I see there is additional balconies, so that makes it more dynamic. Stepping of the facade itself, a little bit regional. Yeah, you added definitely a lot more detail. Facade, so definitely more refined than a lot. I'm the same with you. I'm with you, Rod, in terms of view to the courtyard at the street level. Because the two buildings. This one, I'm okay with that space being open.
Thank you. I was going to use it as an opportunity to bring some art to that space as well. See what
it will definitely need something, because I can just see this 9 months out of the year being a dead zone where people aren't going to want to be there because there's going to be breezes going through that are cold. And yes, they will have a view to a courtyard, but the activity on the street, I think, is not going to be very active. And so, I think it's going to need something in there to activate it. And so, public art, something. The other thing that, and I apologize that I was late, in the previous drawings that we saw, and I don't remember if we saw it in this meeting, previous meeting, or if we saw it as staff, I think one of the issues that we had, and probably was a comment, was the base was starting to look like you had a distinct base with the canopy. And then you had this very recessed floor. And then you had kind of this 3-story wide belt above it. And so instead of a base, middle, top, you sort of had a, base one, then you had belt one, then you had middle, and then you had top. You almost turned it into 4 pieces. And so I think the comment that was one comment. And then there was also a comment about a retaining wall that kind of appeared that we were very.
I talked about that. You may have missed that portion.
But the belt, I think even in this drawing, it looks like there's trying to be a little more weaving of the belt
to the base,
into the base. And I think that's an improvement. And so, I think that comment was at least acknowledged, and you're trying to do something with it. And that, I think that there's obviously a lot of detail that was put into that belt of, the fenestration, the structure and everything else. I think it's quite elegant, but it was just, we were kind of hoping for some way of weaving that into the base so that, again, it looked not necessarily all one design base, but it was woven into the lower parts.
Thank you for that. I think you put it very well. And I read that comment a number of times, over and over again. Okay. And I understood. And if I read it in the way that I read it before I submitted the supplemental, I said, okay, if I follow these instructions, basically, as you're referencing, get rid of the belt aspect of this. And once I get rid of the belt aspect, then the cantilever concept disappears. They cannot exist in the same space. So that's why I said, well, this is what happens. So you end up with a 3-story base. Yes, it will, shake hands with the building to the east and west much better, perhaps, but I lose what I think is an exciting architectural concept, which in my view is still valid, but I respect every opinion here. What I would like to do, if it fits the whole group, is that you started saying something and I was headed in the same direction, except that, it requires more time. Jayu, I don't know if you can dig up, but if you can dig up the perspective from the supplemental, the building base drawing, the 3-story base. Thank you. What I would like to do, I think, and I'm going to keep it, architecture is all resolved in words until you get to the desk and nothing works, right? So I'm trying to retain this 3-story sort of overhang that is displayed on the west side. And you started saying that. I'm going to try to bring this somewhere around here so I can suggest the beginning of this as you see it, and then take the eye in towards the west elevation. And then see if I can develop a base at about the same height. I just wasn't fond of what's going on in here. It just became very ordinary. And this became very plainer. Okay, so I lost a lot of the excitement. So I re-reviewed this and then I reacted to it. So I showed up with the renderings you looked at today. Those were my reactions. And this is a remnant from an old model. So if you agree, I would like to go to the site plan with that understanding and keep working on the building.
Well, let's call it your belt. I think pulling the belt around onto Battery Lane and maybe terminating it where the balconies are helps reinforce what you're doing with the top.
That's what I'm trying
So
to.
it gets more cohesive because of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. So, but I didn't have enough time to resolve it here, and it just became kind of sloppy, and so.
And I guess it's your second floor, the top of the base. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's just way too heavy. It's not integrated. Perhaps it needs to be all glass or all one material, whatever it is. I mean, I didn't have a chance to do it. So, the comment showed up. We had like a day to work on it as well as other things. And
where the belt is lighter, we have not seen, perhaps there is a glass guardrail, right, that ties into the story facade that makes it look more like a 3-story versus just where it says facade.
Right. I mean, I don't want to battle this. I want to have a nice building, and I want everybody to be happy, and I want to be able to express what we're trying to do. I mean, this has been our work, and I just want to take the next step in my sort of adventure.
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
Not related to the architecture, but in this package, on the last slide, there's a view of the north-south connection, which we thought was really good, that it had a
Can you
real
find this view?
demarcation.
The opposite directions.
Spaces along
This is the one.
length of that connection from the curb to the face of the building, street wall, street trees. You have this path, you have sitting areas, and then the private spaces of the building. It looks different from what's in the submittal package. Can you
Oh,
a little bit about that, Josh? Because if you just switch to this middle package now, this view looks different and narrower, but I'm not sure if it truly is the case or it's just where the view's taken. In the presentation that you shared today, I think there are two views.
It's not two views, it's
Yeah,
two,
one and one.
one and one. There was an original view taken from higher up in the first submittal. To the first submittal package. There is slightly raised view looking into that space. Perhaps that's what you're talking about. Give me a second here.
Oh, no, I think what you had was what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
The supplemental package, there's a view
mhm.
that makes that space look really a little bit wider and has these sort of, public to private delineation. In the views we saw today, I just want to make sure this design is what you're proposing in what you shared today, Josh?
Correct. Yeah, the idea is to build on the proposed path for the western site to have this rhythm of small spaces along it, and then define with plantings, and sometimes some seat walls or something like that, or furnishings, a buffer to the more private realm that's along the building that may have terraces coming out. We are taking up about 3 feet of grade from that level of our northern property line. So it'll change a little bit in its expression, but it'll have those features in a rhythm along there.
I think Jonathan had something to share as
Yeah.
well.
I have actually a few, I don't want to confuse matters by talking about the architecture. But open space, I have some comments. While this slide is up, we can talk about this space. I know that you've talked about the difficulty or even impossibility of having entrances into ground floor units from this side. If you're going to show this sketch and you don't show the grading issues that you say prevent that, I don't think this sketch is helpful. If you're going, this shows, you've told me it's flat, but I hear that, but I don't see it. And I think that the way that it's rendered indicates that it's supposed to be a public space. And I think this is a very unlikely public space. If it were individual gardens for ground floor units, I could see it much more, I could understand that better. But as public space, this seems, it just seems unlikely to be occupied. It's way off the street. There's no reason for anybody to go there. So that's one thing. And if you really can't do the entrances from this walkway, then please prove it to me. That's one thing. Can we talk about the north side of the building, please? There was a sketch on of the north.
What was the last?
Last sketch. Yeah, last slide. Last slide.
Here.
Yeah, there we go. If the view into NIH is unlikely to change because it's an institution and is, how should we say, and is, well, we'll just say pleasant and open, it seems to me that the density of the planting ought to be against the building where the louvers are. And the views should be opened up into NIH rather than the other way around.
Sure. I agree with your comment that, we will put more landscaping against the building. It's not shown here. We had markups, just didn't have time to turn it into this presentation.
No criticism intended. Just
no problem.
I think that would be a better approach.
The more important comment is that, and I tried to cover that in my presentation, we can't really impact the NIH property. And so will clear the area that is within our property lines. But unless a negotiation is made with NIH and they can go and sort of do the clearing of the undergrowth and see if there are any trees worth saving, which is not my forte. Josh can help with that. Then we can open the view. I agree with
Oh,
you
okay.
100%.
Just let me, two things real quickly. One, this isn't a rendering of the planting design. It's a conceptual, just to give you a sense
Photoshop.
that this is a green space that is starting to transition to that natural space to the north. We don't have any forest on our site. We have a fence line on our property line. We have about 3 feet of grass, and then we have paving. Environmental planning staff considers that forest to the north of us high priority. There is a stream eventually that's well beyond our property.
Mhm.
So there's going to be some tension there. But I think the intent is that we will come down with a green, we're looking at green walls, vegetated wall on the left side, plantings, and then transition to a more natural, that ecotone between the pathway, the seating, the man-made elements, and the wood line with some kind of edge treatment planting. So it is open and inviting. It feels like that
Okay.
edge of wood line.
Great. And then the last thing is about the canopy and view into the site from Battery Lane. You've talked about how inviting that is. I personally, I don't believe it, and we don't see any imagery that would convince me. So if you think that that's an important thing to see underneath the canopy into past the drop off and into the sort of the private park for the building, we're gonna have to see that. I'm very skeptical.
Well,
And
yeah,
I'm wondering.
I was going to recommend exactly the same thing. That it strikes me is more important than the north edge or a cut through the site.
Yeah.
A couple of eye-level perspectives
But we have
of how
submitted.
the building meets the ground, eye-level perspectives of how the building meets the ground, but not rendered like the two perspectives we were just looking at. Rendered so that we can understand the architecture and that the greenery is transparent enough so that we can understand the play between the supporting vegetation and the architecture. Right now, both of the perspectives we saw, the greenery, is a conceptual sketch, but it sort of masks what the architectural intent is. That to me could be a tool to improve in my opinion, I'm the dissenting opinion, the weak street edge on the south side of the site on Battery Line.
First one, the origin.
I'm thinking that, in fact, the open space that's deeper into the site
It's a rendering.
is, in fact, it's not meant for the public. It's a private park for the residents of the building. And making that visible and inviting to the public isn't the point. It might be more inviting to the public if the lobby and other lobby improvements that possibly the public could be invited into. That would be more of a public benefit than a view into a park that they're not supposed to occupy. So if that's going to be really wonderful, please let me know.
Trying to find it, but I respect the comment, but I'm not in agreement with it. Again, it is a very pleasant green space to which you have a view, and it will present a relief along the street. even if you were downtown, every now and then a break would be helpful. And
Right.
and I see a lot of excitement, frankly, under that canopy. It's an opportunity to light up, and the building lobby is all glass. The whole facade is glass at the first 2 floors, and it's totally transparent, which is daytime or nighttime specifically. And I would also like to, have that street connection if you're in the plaza and use it. And I mean, there is no sign there that says do not enter.
If I can just add, we don't intend to leave that a vacant area. We intend to do something with it, whether it's public art or doing something with the
Right.
columns that are open, whether it's making those more sculptural or growing greenery on them. There will be something done to make that
And
area.
we had a rendering
exciting.
submitted for the first presentation. We're not finding it from street level. Okay, we're not able to find it.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to seeing it later on.
Thank you.
I think
But
the
I don't think that
that-
I can offer a firm endorsement of this strategy without having seen it.
It'll also be good to see how the drive-through interacts with that space, because even beyond that void in the building, there's what, 30+ feet of a view corridor into this because of the existence of the driveway. So I think seeing both those things together and might help conversation.
Isn't this rather a level of detail beyond conceptual?
I think that's fine.
Also, we are at sketch plan, but I think the conversation that we're trying to dwindle down to is, does the DAP have enough information at hand now to do the straw vote to move it onto site? And then what I'm hearing is things that they would like to see perhaps at site. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But Jonathan, was that what you were intending?
Well, the issue for me is that if they move ahead to site plan, and if at that point, that's when we find out that, oh dear, that undercut of the building is, not, we don't think that's that's a good thing to have. Then you're really, well, the poor guy is advancing down the road weeks or months, and then has to change things at that point. I don't, whatever the panel thinks is the best way to proceed. But I'm just concerned that we find out, we don't have this information yet. When we
Yeah,
get it,
I
we'll
think-
find out
I
that,
think
oh
we're-
no, this isn't right. And then
As
we
a
have to change
sketch-
the thing.
As a sketch plan, we're talking about massing. This is a massing issue at the ground floor. I mean, this is a massing issue with the whole base of this building. And so I think it is part of sketch.
Okay.
And I think not the confusion, but I think there are some concerns, obviously, from some people. And it was a concern of mine way back, but that open space is not going to be a great space. I mean, that there's going to be problems with it. And so I think if you had some of these views, if you were able to explain it better and to defend it in a way with renderings that look through that sort of tie it all together, the streetscape, the fronting streetscape into the courtyard and along the drive, perhaps that helps to sign off on the massing of the first floor.
So then let me ask the question in a different way, because I did hear, some people in favor of and some people, as a dissent. So would the DAP feel that coming back a third time with those ground level images is necessary before this moves on to site plan? And because we are at the end of the meeting, I kind of want to get to this. And so could we do like a hand vote? Would we like to see it again a third time with those ground level images?
I was able to find the a rendering of that canopy area. If I can share my screen, I'll be able to pull it up.
Go ahead. We do need to dwindle down. We're over time. We have another item.
So this is the older model, but it is looking underneath that canopy, looking into the space. If can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Here's another view from inside, looking out into Battery Lane. Here is the view looking into the courtyard space. And here is the street view on Battery Lane.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, but this was not submitted. Well, we did not submit these drawings.
First presented.
Just a quick collegial statement here. It would be very helpful because I was very confused as to, we've jumped in and out of several different PowerPoints. It would be very helpful to have a single document next time, whatever you're looking at, that both looks backward and looks forward rather than having to jump back and forth, because I was thoroughly confused by the supplemental material moving back and forth between these documents.
Well, what we would like to do is really move on, if we can, to the site plan and submit a complete package that has all of these renderings and what we're proposing to do. I think personally, we've explored this really ad infinitum. I think it's across the level of fairness. I mean, we're working with a real model, and that's about as good as it's going to get.
So if I could make a statement, because I sit in the same professional world as you do, and I know it's 3 months and 2 were last year. There's a lot of burn that goes on to get to those points. I think what I'm hearing from my fellow panel members is the space needs development, but as far as I'm concerned, it can wait until the next phase. And that's my personal.
I agree.
Eamon, can I get your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I can go both ways here. I mean, clearly there's some consternation on the panel's part here.
Can everybody mute themselves online? It's a little hard to hear. Thank you. Sorry, Damon.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, clearly there's some differing opinions on the panel. I mean, what I would suggest to the development team is to come back at site plan with the 2 different options that we're hearing. But you know, at the site plan level, that's challenging to do. So that's a question for the development team, whether that's the direction they would want to go in. And if not, I would suggest getting this resolved, even though to come back on a concept level plan 3 times is pretty, you know, unusual.
Yeah,
it does sound like something that needs to get resolved here. My own personal opinion is I kind of like this corridor with I mean, it's a beautiful plaza area off the street that's being designed or rendered here. So I personally like it, but I could really see it going either way. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a beautiful building no matter what. So I will. This has gotten a little bit lost, but I would congratulate the team, the development team here. It is a nice looking building, but there's just this one element that needs to get resolved. Those are my thoughts. I don't know if it's helpful.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. What I'm committing to is to resolve the basic, which I think is the biggest issue, and head in the direction of the 3-story base and somehow resolve the architecture above it through more work on our part. But I think the second comment, this opening to the courtyard, is sort of being debated. I would like to retain that. Show that we've done that successfully at the site plan.
If I may add, Damon, I appreciate those comments. This is Chris Rulin. I think that some of the answers to this will reveal themselves as we get into the site plan, when some of the details are known about how would the art work in that space, and what, you know, at the site plan stage, we only have more information to answer some of the questions that are being asked. So I think that, you know, our team would be fine taking the comments on board and knowing that this is an issue to resolve, you know, to revisit again when we get into that stage. But I think we would only have more information at that point to sort of help make the case.
And so to get this to a close, I hear 3 of the panel members saying that this is okay to move on to site. And I have the comments from Brian and Jonathan that there's still more information needed, particularly in this space, the ground level images updated. How is it going to be activated? Will there be public art? What's going to be in here? What is the view going to be from the street? And so with all of these comments taken in mind, if the straw vote is 3-2, we can move this on to site plan with those things being addressed then. And that is the base issue. Does the DAP want to see an alternative design at site plan with this? Okay. Okay then, so were there any?
Come back with 2 designs.
No,
Not at that stage.
Okay.
I can't. We have to, you have to come in through one. It's
I
just,
think the other thing though that Jonathan mentioned was the path, the through block path on the west side.
Yes.
And that is a pathway. That through block is basically mandated by the master plan, I believe.
Yes.
yes.
And so if then you take Jonathan's comment, if it isn't appearing like it's as public as possible, as you can possibly make it, then it perhaps needs a little more work too. But I think that's probably coming along once landscape architects, the civil and so on.
And I think
start
that's a
looking at
site
it.
plan issue. I wouldn't delay
Yeah.
site plan on that basis.
Thank you.
So when we send out the minutes, we'll make sure that the specific images, ground level images that were requested are accurately described in the notes, so you can provide those at site. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay then. Thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.